The starting point in healing unlovability is to work with the belief on a conceptual level. So number one, do you believe that it is possible for something or someone or a god or a goddess or some consciousness or a dog? Do you believe that it is possible to be loved, for you to be loved? Because we're dealing with the unlovable parts with you, the parts of you that have decided that they're not lovable. Do you believe that there is something, someone, somewhere, at some point in time that is capable of loving you, loving those parts of you? And as arrogant as it is to say no, right? It's like 300 trillion stars, more than 100 trillion planets out there likely to support life. I mean, we've got it up to 1 billion in the areas we've looked, like but we're in a very tiny part of the universe, right? And so we've already admitted that there's 1 billion planets out there that are capable of developing our version of life. And they've all had 25 billion years to do it. And time's just getting started, right? In another 1 trillion years. We're only 25 billion years. In another 1 trillion years, right, of evolution and growth, is it possible, right, that somewhere, something is capable of loving you? And if the answer is no, I'm sure of it. I mean, we have a maturity problem, right? A speck of 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 a speck is supposedly dictating lovability for all time throughout the universe. I mean, where do you get so full of yourself? This is also one of the paradoxes of unlovability, because you will find this. I have found this at times when I have expressed love for someone who has decided that they're unlovable. I don't deserve this. I'm not lovable. I'm a bad person. I'm da, da, da. And it's like, well, if you're so bad and you're so unlovable and so untogether, what makes you think that your opinion is so important, right? You're saying your life is a mess, which means you don't have a clear view of things. You're not very competent. And you're so wretched that no one in the known universe could love you. But your opinion is going to be the one that we should all listen to. You say you're unlovable, so we're supposed to listen to you? What if we feel like loving you, right? And so you have this very interesting juxtaposition between superiority and inferiority, right? I'm more important than you. My opinion of my unlovability is so much more important than your opinion that you'd like to love me, right? You can't love me, right? I know, right? Because I'm a mess, right? So it's this bizarre double message. I'm better than everyone else, which is why my opinion of my unlovability is the only one that matters. But I'm so less than everyone else that nobody in the known universe could possibly love me, right? And this is a joke. It's a symptom of traumatic abuse. It's funny on the one hand, it's a symptom of traumatic abuse, right? I'm not loved, I'm not loved. And the need for certainty is what's there, right? I need to be certain of something. And since I can't be certain that I'll be loved and taken care of, I need to be certain that I will not be loved. And so it's really coming from that traumatized need for certainty. But it is, nonetheless, can be very irritating to try and love someone who is in one moment saying they're so bad they cannot be loved, and on the other hand, they're saying that they know better than you. Which is basically saying you're dumb. You think I'm lovable. You're dumb. I know better, but I'm worse than you, right? So it's not a very logical thing until you understand trauma. But it's important to have enough humility. You don't have to confront it right now because it can be a shattering of the unlovable identity, which exposes you to the unknown and the chaos and the fear of the unknown and fear of death, right? So you just have to grasp on an abstract level that, if a dog can love you, right? And, this is Philip. And on the days when I wake up feeling completely and utterly unloved and unlovable, Philip is cuddling up on my back, cuddling up in my front, happy to see me. So he's too dumb to realize that, he didn't get the memo, right? That I'm completely unlovable. Which also means he's too smart, right? So it's, and this is one hack. One of the reasons I mention up is spend time with an animal, with a dog in particular. Spend time with a dog, and you try to convince that dog when you come home at the end of the day that, no, I'm unlovable, I don't deserve any love. The dog is too smart and too dumb to get caught up in your bullshit. And the dog will love you, right? Which hopefully would give a little bit of humility, a little bit of a crack in there, that maybe you don't know everything in the known universe, right? If even a dog is better at some things than you are, maybe you're wrong and you're lovable, right? Could be, right? So it's very important to have that belief that there is someone, somewhere, someplace, some deity, some point in the history. We've got 1 trillion years to go, right? So it could be in the future that you're lovable. Right now, your crimes are so heinous that no one on the planet could potentially love you, which is wrong, but still you may think that because you've never met one of them. And that's fine. You don't love yourself. Nobody else that you've met is very competent at loving you. So nobody, right? Let's just take my 10,000 contacts and say that, that extrapolates out to, 7 billion people. And, they might be off in a cave meditating and sharing bliss and love and forgiveness with all things. They could be. Buddha sounds like he was not all hung up about your problems, and probably, would have welcomed you into a sutra. So, there certainly have been. But even if you haven't met them and can't believe that, and then sometime in the next 1 trillion years, one of the many planets will probably bring about a consciousness of being that is too interested to have fun, to hold on to all their hatred and believe all of your lies about your misery. And so, then you'd be loved at that, at that point. And so cracking through that is important, because the abused child, in their desperate search for certainty and their inability to find certainty in being loved, seeks certainty in the unlovability. It's a crystallization of the identity for simplicity and certainty in a time of overwhelm and panic. And so you have to have compassion on the you that decided you were unlovable as something solid to hang on to, a belief structure that nobody could take it away from you, right? And good job, right? Nobody's taken it away from you to this date. You still believe. It's like nobody's taken it from you, right? They took your joy, they took your innocence, they took your trust, they took your creative imagination about this, and they took your hopes and the dreams, but they've never taken this away from you, that you're unlovable. You found that you needed something solid, you got it, you held on, and it's still yours, right? Enjoy. And so I needed something solid. That was the most solid thing that I could find. And I've been hanging on to it ever since, desperately, needing to find some identity that would not be shattered by overwhelming energy, by trauma, by violation. Because the beauty of an unlovability identity is that every abuse that happens from now on will prove that you're unlovable. Again, give more energy to that. It won't take it away. But when people are nice to you, you can say, well, that's just leading up to the abuse that will come later, right? They're always nice in the first month or whatever. But that's in preparation for even more abuse later, right? And so you just discount all that. And so even if you're only abused 10% of the time by 10% of the people in your life, you can say that that's just because they don't know the real unlovable part, and they would all be abusive if they knew, right? Or it's just a matter of time. Whereas, somehow if you said the opposite, everyone is going to love me, it's just a matter of time, I'm not sure I can believe that. It's like, well, it's taking an awfully long time for some of them to love me. And I am absolutely lovable. In other words, if you need something simple and really, really solid, you got it with I am unlovable. And will never amount to something, or whatever it is that we tell ourselves. Because even if we climb, we could always fall back again. And then that's where it is. So change the belief that it is possible. Look a little bit at also just the hubris in, these grandiose statements. I know absolutely nothing, I'm unlovable, but I know this. How? Ooh. You've taken a psychology course on lovability. So it is odd that it tends to be the most ignorant and narrow-minded people that are the most certain that they or this or that person is unlovable. And so certainty certainly is not correlating with competence here. It's correlating with the need for security in something solid, and so we make something up that we can believe in. So that's kind of a way out. That's the stepping stone. You are lovable. Just you and maybe everyone that you know is incapable of loving every part of you in all the ways that they want to be loved. But you are lovable, just not by the people around you at this period of time, including yourself. And then the next thing to be clear is that even though this is a grandiose statement of, I am unlovable, the truth is that parts of us are loved. And they're loved to some degree, right? So it's not really as black and white as we pretend. I am alive. You're alive. If you're dead, stop watching this video. You're alive, right? And lots and lots and lots of people could have killed you. Maybe a few of them tried some of the time, but they obviously didn't try very hard, or you'd be dead. It's not hard to kill someone. Just takes one, if you're really dedicated. So no one's been that dedicated to finishing you off. Now, they may have hated this part of you and been trying to kill that part without killing the rest of you. But you're all of you, right? And so even people who can't love this about you and can't love that about you and hate this about you, they like this other part of you and this other part. They may not want to admit it. They may be in a need for simplicity and don't want to think, and so they want to categorize you into this bit and that bit. But if you ask an honest person, do you hate absolutely everything about me? Yes, I do. I hate you, every bit of you. So you hate the gravitational constant. That's part of me. You hate that. You hate that. Would you like to live in a country where everyone who somebody hated was dead, including you? There's usually somebody who hates everyone at some given point, right? So would you like to live in a world where everyone who is hated by somebody somewhere is dead? In other words, without any people? I mean, no, I kind of, that's fine, you live. And what about the fact that I eat cornflakes? Do you hate the fact that I eat cornflakes? Oh, I hate it. So everyone with cornflakes? Is the cornflakes you hate? No, okay, nothing wrong. But there's this one thing you said at this time, and I've hated you ever since, and I don't want anything to do with you. Okay, so you hate this one thing at one point, at one time, and you because of that thing, everything that I didn't do to you all the other times or did do, is all pointless. So it is important to understand that when people hate or are not loving us, it's not as grandiose or as universal a statement as language suggests. It's, I can't stand this about you that makes me feel this, that I don't know how to deal with. And because I don't know how to deal with my feelings, I've got to try and destroy you because you're making me feel them. Well, in an emotionally illiterate culture, nobody knows how to deal with their feelings. And so the feelings at certain times will be so painful you'd do almost anything to stop them. And it just so happens that you were doing the thing that made me feel that feeling. And so I'm driven insane by trying to get rid of this pain. But, an incompetent person in an incompetent culture when it comes to emotional literacy and psychology and, interpersonal relationships. And so I just don't really know what I'm doing. And so, but if I could just destroy you and every trigger reminder of this thing, then maybe I would feel better, right? And unfortunately, it doesn't work because then there's someone else that does that. But, it seems like there's hope, right? I don't know how to manage my feelings. I don't know how to endure this pain that come out of these feelings. But maybe if I killed you, it would be better, right? And, the literature is pretty clear on that, right? That people who get fed up with someone and go kill them don't usually feel better, right? So then they look around like if they didn't get the message, then maybe they try and see, well, maybe they killed the wrong person, right? And they tried to kill somebody else and then somebody else. And like, oh gosh, I don't, this isn't working, right? So, but in a psychologically illiterate culture, there are some people that really hope and believe and think that if they could just kill the right person, because that's what their parents tried to do in them. If their parents could just kill off this exuberant part or kill off this truth-telling part that ruined all the family secrets, right? If they could just kill the truth teller, right? Then the whole family would be peaceful again. It doesn't usually work. Usually if you kill off the truth teller, you kill off the essence of the person, and now they become traumatized, and now you deal with other things, right? Now we have to kill those parts off, right? So killing is a relatively simplistic way of solving incompetence. Because, of course, if you were highly competent to manage your own feelings and other people were highly competent to manage their feelings, then they would heal their feelings and let you go about your business, right? And they wouldn't be all afraid of you and ganged up on you, and then you wouldn't feel like you're unlovable, right? So the very fact that you feel unlovable is symptomatic of a profound level of incompetence. An incompetence that is so thick that, A, we don't realize how incompetent we are, but 2, we don't know what to do about it. I mean, if we did, we would be competent, right? Nobody wants to feel bad, but you do, and I do, and they do. And so it must be what? It must be I'm unlovable, right? No, it must be we're incompetent, right? We haven't figured this out yet. And why would we in a cult that goes out of its way to ignore feelings and shame people for have feelings and tell people not to feel? And that's profound incompetence. So if you're taught incompetently how to be incompetent, I mean, is there any surprise that you're incompetent? Of course you're incompetent. You're surrounded by incompetence. The incompetence is so thick they think they're competent. It takes a very, very dumb person to think that they're smart when they're dumb, right? If you know anything, you at least realize that you don't know what you're doing there. But if you're really dumb, and of course, we attack dumb people. That's incompetent, right? I mean, has anyone ever found that shaming and blaming dumb people helps in any way? No, it's never helped once. You dumb, stupid person, da 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 da. Well, if they're dumb and stupid, they're not going to be able to fix being dumb and stupid. If you're dumb and stupid, you're not going to be able to fix being dumb and stupid. So you have to have very dumb and stupid people complaining how dumb and stupid other people are, right? I have to be dumb to be all upset at how dumb you are, because it doesn't help, right? It's incompetent. We all want to feel better. That doesn't help, right? Other than to dissociate from the misery of our incompetence, it doesn't actually help. So anyway, you are lovable. I am lovable. There has been and will be a consciousness, human or otherwise, that is capable of looking competently at the situation rather than an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth and punishment. Punishment is not very competent. It's incredibly incompetent. Discipline, when it works, is more competent, right? But teaching winning practices is the most competent. It's just we haven't gotten around to it because we're not very competent. And blaming and shaming ourselves for not being incompetent is not very competent. But that's the kind of thing that incompetent people do that don't know how to heal their incompetence, right? But incompetence is very different than unlovable. You may not be able to love your incompetence, but that's why you're incompetent, right? If you knew how to love your incompetence and heal your incompetence, heal your ignorance with knowledge and skill, you would no longer be incompetent and ignorant. You'd be knowledgeable and competent, and then you could love that, right? I hate my incompetence. I hate my stupidity. Ugh. Yeah, because you're stupid, right? A stupid person doesn't know how to love their stupidity. A competent person knows how to love their stupidity, and then it grows and becomes less stupid, right? So that's, my goodness, right? My goodness, right? And this is the kind of things that in a culture such as our own, nobody's going to point out. Have you ever heard this before? No one's ever pointed this out to me. Why? Is that, I must be unlovable, right? No. We are a psychologically illiterate, emotionally illiterate, chauvinistic cult that goes out of its way to avoid feminine things like feelings and inner worlds and biology, and likes to focus on bigger houses, and even when it just means bigger house cleaning and bigger bankruptcies. We just do it anyway, right? Because we don't know what we're doing. That's incompetence, right? And incompetent people never know what they're doing. Incompetent cultures raise incompetent families, which produce incompetent individuals who often look at the incompetence of their cult and blame themselves. I'm unlovable. That's what incompetent people do. But you can also have compassion and passion for stupidity and incompetence and become a little bit more competent, a little bit less stupid. And by doing that, love yourself, and then be even less, and love yourself some more, right? That's a good direction. And somewhere in the universe, there are beings, there are people that have done that are doing that, and that will be able to do that sometime in the next trillion years. Sometime in the next trillion years, you're going to be completely and totally loved. Why? Because no energy is created and destroyed. Energy is changing from one form to another. So your form will change, but the energy will be there. And the energy that is currently you at some point will evolve into something that other things that have already evolved will love and support into something intelligent. Because life moves towards intelligence. Life moves towards evolution. 25 billion years ago, life was this big. That's what the scientists say. There was nothing. And then, poof, the Big Bang. And then we're all descendants. Now, doesn't this look bigger than this? Doesn't this seem more complex than gases? Why? Because life's busy, growing and learning, healing and changing. Life is getting better, more intelligent, right? So we just have to hang in there, right? And eventually, we'll die, and our atoms and all that will get recycled into something even more beautiful. And that will be you too, right? Won't be the you that's there now, but you cannot take any energy out of reality. You can just change its shape, right? And the shape is generally progressing towards complexity, towards grace, towards evolution, towards intelligence. We as a people are more intelligent today than we were 500 years ago. Well, what do you think will happen in the next 500 years? Maybe 500 years ago, somebody would be able to love you in the future, right? Because they've evolved, right? They've figured out a better way of doing it. And then they do it, right? And they look back at you and they read about you in the past and say, oh, what a, gosh, I really feel for that person. I forgive him his sins, her sins, and part of life's journey. I love them. I love all of life, right? Possible? Absolutely. So what next? So the first thing is then to start breaking it apart. If someone allows you to exist as a physical body, that's love by allowing. They're allowing you to meet your needs of survival and security of survival. The fact that you're alive and able to talk means that for at least, 7 years of your life, all the people around you decided not to kill you. Well, that's a low level of love. But you've got that kind of level because you're here. Security, right? So you can parse out what is love, right? Security, do you feel relatively secure? I'm not planning on dying in the next year or so. I'm relatively secure. That's, again, a form of love from reality, from people. Love and belonging. Now, what is love and belonging? Well, it's loving enough to care, caring enough to take time, taking enough time to see. Well, there are plenty of me that nobody cares enough, loves enough to care, cares enough to take time. Or they care enough to hate, or they care enough to blame, but they don't care enough to see. And if they see, they don't see enough to understand. And if they understand, they don't understand enough to empathize with what it's like to be that part of me. And if they empathize, they don't empathize enough to change anything in a way that would increase the feeling of love, right? So love and belonging, pretty low, right? So love and belonging is what we're working on as a species right now. We've survived for the most part. We're relatively secure in our survival. And we have certain parts, the cool, confident, macho, whatever, they get love and belonging. But the whimpering, terrified, traumatized, wounded child gets hatred by us and by the cult, right? So we're not very good at loving all the parts of us, right? So some parts of us we love, and people who embody those parts get, put on a pedestal, right? Aren't they great, right? As if they don't have that other side to them that they've buried often in a need to get love and belonging. So we're working on love and belonging, and so you can say, yeah, nobody's taking enough time to see this, nobody's this. And so you can say, well, at some point, you can love enough to care enough to take time. You're taking time, and you're seeing me, you're seeing pieces of yourself. So you're loving enough to care, you're caring enough to take time. Can you take enough time to see clearly? No, I'm busy. Okay, then you're at a low level of love, right? And so is everyone else. They're at a low level of love too. But eventually, maybe you will take enough time to see clearly. Oh, I get it. I see, and then I hate, and I judge, and the terrible me. I see it. Oh, I'm such a terrible person. No, you see enough to understand. Do you see enough to understand why and how that mechanism works in the psyche? Because it's not all about you. the archetypal energies of evolution within the psyche, you're part of a vast possibility field and probability field. It's not all about you. You're not the worst person. You're not the best person. There's plenty of that going around. All right, now coming back into the kind of space here, reality is fractal. And what that means is we can find much bigger patterns within every tiny moment. So I began to get a smell of dog poo, and so something's going on. I'm thinking maybe Philip needs the bathroom, and I'm holding him, so he's kind of stuck. And he hasn't developed a system to kind of communicate with me. And sure enough, he's kind of pooing while I'm holding him. So, and because he's sitting on me, that's smearing into my pants. Then because of his kind of fuzzy hair-like nature, then that's getting caught in his hair. And so the question is, can we be loving? Can we understand? So my first thought was, let me take him to his puppy pad and cut off the bit of the hair that's kind of mangled in with dog shit. But apparently I wasn't competent enough, meaning I made one snip and he squealed, so apparently I'd pulled some hair, near his anus. So then I have to figure out what to do because there's poo kind of matted into his hair. And so I go to the bathtub and I try to kind of hold him up to the water jet so that, it can wash away without, cutting away any hair, etc. But he's scared, right? So he pulls away, and as a result of him pulling away, I have to pull harder, right? So now he's in, more stress because he doesn't have the competence to understand the systems that are going on. And I don't have the competence to talk dog and explain, hey, if you just relax, this will be over in a second. Meaning you're scared of this, but all the pain you're scared of, you're creating by running away, right? So isn't that a fractal pattern? Isn't that a metaphor for human beings? So anything new, anything out of Philip's control, he resists instinctively. And so he felt great afterwards, running around, playful, etc. But while I was doing the things that would help him feel great, that would help him, him and I stay close and have him, not be having an itchy butt and all that, he was resisting. What's this? What's that? Get that water jet away from me. Do this. And maybe there's something, you see, what we're dealing with is two incompetent beings here. Maybe there's a water jet pressure that wouldn't have created any resistance, but I'm too dumb to know it, right? Because I don't speak dog, and he doesn't speak human. And so at the point that I can't figure it out, like I have no idea what I've tried the scissors, I've tried this. I just have to hold him, right? And wash out, the dog shit. Then he feels good, right? So let's now, but I still feel love for Philip, right? And Philip still feels love for me, playing around, wanting to be close to me. We had a little game after that to bond again. I still feel love for Philip. Philip still feels love for me. So that didn't go into unlovable, right? Philip's not terrified of me. I'm not hating Philip for ruining this video, right? Because this is where context comes in. Now, if we go back a couple of years to when I was just getting back in the country after 6 months traveling, so my finances were really low. And I felt crappy being back in the US. I much prefer Thailand. And so I was feeling low. My finances were low. But precisely because my finances were low, I needed to work. And wouldn't you know, I got a really cheap client. So that was irritating. Someone that's nitpicking over every penny but not paying attention to the big picture. That's also incompetent, right? When you nitpick over the pennies and ignore the big picture, that's incompetent as well. So we got another form of incompetence. And then Philip runs over to their Buddha statue and pees on it, right? Nothing's going well. And I didn't even get the job with the cheap client, right? So that's, I was not as loving to Philip at the end of that. It's because, what, you had to pick the Buddha statue? You dumb idiot, and then what? But you see, lacking love always looks at the whole picture. I was pissed off at Philip for pissing on a Buddha because I didn't have my game together, right? So this is a really important thing to understand about, why people may not like us, right? May not love us. It's because they don't have their game together, right? So fragile, incompetent people can be knocked off by all manner of things, including us. And so they're desperately trying to control us so that their life will stay intact. My finances could have been in such a state that I was independently wealthy by that point. It's just as a young man, I thought that, being focused on material money and stuff was a bit, passé and, just part of the problem, right? So I never invested, in my 20s and 30s. So then this comes along. So I'm incompetent, meaning I made some mistakes in my outlook, etc. And I made other mistakes, So the fact that I felt like in that moment, it felt like my whole life depends on the stupidity of this dog. Like, goodness gracious, And I'm obsessed with the stupidity of a dog, right? But there again, it's about competence. I set him down. I was the trainer, right? I was the trainer, or the lack of trainer, right? So it all comes down to competence. But competence produces fragility and pain, or strength and success and well-being, right? Incompetence produces fragility and pain. Competence produces success and well-being, right? And so then we understand this, so then we hate losers, right? But that's incompetent, right? Every person has the potential to contribute, and if the entire cult lacks the competence to train a person to succeed, the cult loses, right? But the cult is usually a little bit too cowardly to say, we don't know what we're doing, so we're raising a bunch of losers. Even though we want winners, we're raising losers. I mean, that's a losing cult right there. If you raise a bunch of losers, you lose as a cult. This is the cult where we take all the poor people and we teach them how to be poor, and then we complain about them. And then we lose to another country that teaches all its people to be wealthy or work harder, And so it's like, the schizophrenia, the idea that somehow you can scapegoat a demographic of individuals that are in your midst is a form of stupidity. And we have that form of stupidity, and we're too stupid to know that we're stupid, which is a very common phenomena. So I wasn't liking myself very much. I would have liked to have declined that job and not even been interested in it when I observed all the penny focus and neglecting the big picture. I would have just said, this client is stupid. Many clients are. This client is stupid. And they're too stupid to recognize that they're stupid, and so they're not going to ask for help. So I'm not going to be able to help them. So I'm going to be doing stupid things for a stupid client who's too stupid to know that they're stupid. And that's not as fun as doing great things for an intelligent client who is intelligent enough to know that they don't know everything in this field, right? That's an easy, great client to work with. But I'm stupid because I didn't create that more intelligent client. I was pushing it to the edge, right? Dealing with immigration stupidity, right? So we have a stupid culture, so obviously there's going to be immigration stupidity by people raised in that culture, right? It's easier to get my dog into the country than my wife. How stupid is that? Well, congratulations, America, right? You know how to be stupid in immigration as well, right? So I'm dealing with that stupidity, and I'm pushing it, right? I want to spend as much time with my wife as possible, rather than, in a reality where my own wife cannot visit me in my own house. Stupid people come from stupid cultures emerge out of stupid people. It's a fractal pattern, right? We're all stupid to some degree, but we don't have to be stupid about our stupidity. We can take note of it and start healing bits of it and improving it, or we can make it worse. Stupid people make their stupidity worse by blaming and punishing it rather than doing anything about it. So we do at least have that choice. But I'm really upset about the whole thing. A stupid client, a stupid context, my own stupidity, my dog's stupidity, and the whole thing is just, it's getting painful, right? It's getting painful. And so when things get painful to a certain point, we try, one thing that incompetent people do is they dissociate. And, I could be being a bit too hard when I talk about, incompetent people dissociate. I should say it's a low level of intelligence. The high level of intelligence is to prevent the pain in the first place. The next level of intelligence is to heal it gracefully and be out of pain. The third level of intelligence is to heal it with struggle and effort and be out of pain. And the fourth level of intelligence is, I don't know what to do with all this pain because I'm too stupid, so I'm going to dissociate from the whole situation by what? By blaming, by judging, by scapegoating, by pretending it's all their fault. It's never any one person's fault, right? You take someone like a rape scenario. That rapist, it's their fault, right? Really? Really? That's the only person involved? Right? The entire culture couldn't prevent the rape. No one could educate for it. No one could look at the problems. No one could help that guy's parents know how to raise a kid. No one. Absolutely no one. Yeah, let's execute our children, right? Put them on death row for heinous crimes, whatever. No, it's a form of profound stupidity. And it's, of course, very easy to, find a scapegoat and blame them. But that's what stupid people do. Intelligent people look at the system that created the phenomena and they change the system. Stupid people find someone to blame and then kill or make the situation worse. And then the problem continues indefinitely because the same system that produced the last person who rapes people produces other people that rapes people, and that doesn't change because people are too stupid to trace it back to the system, right? If I've got a thread factory that's producing thread, and every so often I get angry and I attack the thread for being the problem. I trip over the thread, and so now it's the thread's problem, and I'm still feeding electricity into the factory that's producing all the thread. It just means I'm stupid, right? Which is, nothing new, right? And so, that's the kind of situation we're in. So in this situation, I felt love for Philip and love for myself because it's not a dependent situation, right? There is a critic that says that's an unprofessional way to do a video, including all this, right? You shouldn't talk about poo. That's politically incorrect. Shouldn't do this, shouldn't do that, shouldn't do this. There's a voice that says that. But there's another voice that says, you don't need to keep watching, right? If you've got this all figured out and you can make a better video, go do it, right? The world will be a better place, right? This doesn't have to be perfect. This is a generosity on my Sunday afternoon, and it's not up to whatever artificial standards and stuff you make. Fine, you've got other options. So do I, right? But in a like, if I needed you to, my whole life depends on you liking my thing to, promote my show to the network, then this could have been outrageous. Philip, you ruined the chance, for syndication, right? But so it's context dependent, right? So, if you have fucked up parents who hate truth telling and beat whichever child is telling the truth that day, then if you are absolutely terrified of being beaten as a sensitive trauma survivor, you're absolutely terrified of being beaten, then the truth teller becomes your enemy. Why did you have to tell the truth? Now we're going to be beaten. And you blame the truth teller, just like your parents. So everyone's incompetent in the situation, right? But a truth teller where somebody actually has decency, you're right. My mom and dad are a hypocrite. You're absolutely right. We're a hypocrite here and there, and we're too lazy to fix it. And unfortunately, you're going to have to live with it because this cult allows us to have as many kids as we want. It's not illegal to be a hypocrite and to shame children. And so you're stuck with us until you can get a job. And by the way, you can't legally do that for many years to come. So, yep, we are a hypocrite. And you're absolutely right. Good thinking there. And we don't know what we're doing. And I guess, enjoy your dumb parents, because that's who we are. In that scenario, it could have felt slightly better to point it out. Now at least it's out in the open. But a dumb parent like that is going to beat you for pointing out the obvious, well, suddenly the truth teller seems to be the enemy, right? I hate myself. Why do I always have to tell the truth, right? Say something that's obvious. Why do I have to do that, right? When I know I'm surrounded by morons who don't want to hear the truth, right? So, that's how we become terrified of parts of ourselves. Because other people are terrified of those parts of us. Because those parts of us are bringing up things they don't know how to deal with. And then they're doing whatever they can to shut those parts up, to silence them, to beat them, to submit them, to don't do that. Why did you have to say I was kissing that woman when Mom was around? Why? What were you thinking? Always tell the truth? Oh, you're dumb. And, stupid people are so dumb they don't even understand the relationship of what they're saying and what they're doing. But so there isn't a problem with unlovability. There's a problem with competence. Our competence and everyone else's, right? Because I may say, what a dumb client, what dumb parents, what a dumb immigration policy. I can say that, you see. That's all true. But then there's this other bit, so am I going to start a country? I don't know how. I don't have the support. I'm not competent enough to convince people. Well, so the stupidity is here too. Am I going to manage my funds so that I don't have to depend on incompetent clients? No. Why? Because I don't know what I'm doing either. So it takes, because you can imagine one 100% competent person, one truly, truly competent person does not need to get dragged down by the stupidity of every single person around them. Right? But the problem is usually ignorance and stupidity in a group does not usually lead to one person being, profoundly competent, right? Sometimes, one person's a lot more competent than the other. But so it's all of our problem is what I'm saying. Lovability is all of our problems. Pain is all of our problems. Your pain that causes you to act out and affect my life is also my problem. And if I don't know how to solve your problem, I don't know how to be someone you're going to listen to, I don't know how to get you to understand, that's my incompetence. Someone could, right? Maybe they're a Michael Jackson fan and Michael Jackson's their hero. So if I had the competence to look and be like Michael Jackson, then they'd listen to me. But I don't. I don't know how to change facial expression. I don't know how to sing like Michael Jackson. So they don't want to listen to me, right? You say, oh, they're so stupid. Yeah, but the competence is always shared. Everything that's wrong in the cult, we're all tied into it. And so in a way, we're dealing with learning to love together. Right? Because you could say, well, homelessness is a problem. Yeah. But if I knew how to make $1 trillion, I would pass policies locally and get elected and do this and that, whatever, and I would change the housing policy. I just don't know how to do it, right? Oh, those dumb idiots and the housing policy, right? It's illegal to build tiny houses? It's illegal to build affordable houses? What? Of course there's homelessness, right? But have I fixed the problem? Can I fix the problem? I don't know how. I'm not willing to, right? So now we're back to me, right? So it is important to understand that, we're always dealing with all of it, right? It's the same with anyone else. It's the same with you. If you were so bright that you could fix all the world's problems, then why haven't you, right? Well, somebody is that bright. Maybe in 1 trillion years, somebody has accumulated the skill to fix all the problems that we're dealing with on Earth quite effortlessly and do it with love and with grace, here. Use this app, use this governmental protocol, make money in this way, do agriculture in this way. It'll all be wonderful. We'll do a sample country right here. See how great they're doing. Anyone wants to copy it, fine. So there is that possibility that one person could change it all. It's just we've never encountered that one person, right? Maybe they've tried to do it and we've killed them, right? Buddha or Jesus or whatever. Maybe they came along and we killed them, which meant that they weren't competent to heal all our fear of the unknown. People who hang on to power, like the Romans, hang on to power, they do it out of fear. It's not fun to be dominating other people. It's done out of fear in a sense of necessity. There'll be an uprising. That just means you don't know how to teach your people to willingly cooperate with a good system, right? You don't know how to educate your people, so you have to use dominance and force, right? So, Jesus didn't know how to heal the fear of chaos and change in the Romans, so they killed him, right? But if Jesus had been competent to lead a workshop, for example, with and been competent enough to get their attention. Like, here, I'll do a few miracles to get your attention. Now let me lead this workshop. And everyone's invited, including all the top Romans. You don't want to learn how to be powerful? Fine. But I have power. I can teach you. Jesus might have done something like that, but he didn't figure it out. He had good messages, But he didn't have the competence to have people learn the messages. Nobody's learned them to this day. You ever felt a Christian giving away their wealth to the poor and and turning the other cheek and not invading indigenous species? I haven't met them. I've never met those Christians. They read the Bible and then often do the exact opposite, right? So that means Jesus didn't have the ability to convince them either, to actually do what it says, right? How many Christians commit adultery? How many Christians lie? How many Christians steal? That means Jesus didn't know how to get all these people to believe him, because you do what you believe. They believe that stealing is going to improve their life, so they steal. They don't believe that not stealing is going to improve their life. They think that handbag, they're believing the advertisers. So the advertisers are saying if you get a Gucci handbag, you're going to be sexy, you're going to be happy, you're going to be healthy. And Jesus is saying, no, don't do that. And they're believing the ad executives. Meaning the ad executives have convinced many Christians to steal and lie and do jobs they hate and abandon their children to do jobs they hate to get that handbag. In other words, the advertising executives were more skillful at brainwashing and a population than Jesus was. And so people go to the Bible on Sunday and then they do what the ad executives say the rest of the week. Well, you can blame all those people for being so stupid. Or you can also say, well, maybe Jesus should have used advertising to get the point across. And then people would be listening to him 6 days a week, right? Rather than Gucci handbag ads or whatever it is that people are selling their well-being for these days, right? And is the same true? I mean, it's perfectly clear, the data is clear that doing what the advertising executives say to do is wrong most of the time. So if most of the people are doing that, they could also grow up and stop doing that. We could grow up and teach them to stop doing it, right? There's no scapegoats is what I'm getting at. No one is to blame for all of our problems. We are all participants in a vast level of ignorance and stupidity, as well as all of the competence and information we've learned so far. Like it's a continuum, right? We're getting better, supposedly, at least in some areas, the areas we measure, we're getting better. But, it's an infinite continuum. You can always become more competent. You can always become more intelligent. You can always become more loving. And those are progressions in evolution, right? So I'm able to be a little bit more loving to you now than I was 2 years ago when I was really upset with trauma and abuse and addiction and all that. I'm a little more loving to you now than I was 2 years ago, right? But, give me 1,000 years and this is going to look like, profound incompetence, hopefully, right? If evolution continues. Your life, and we'll all know so much more. So it's an infinite continuum. So back to kind of steps and things. First of all, understand that we hate pain, and incompetence produces pain, and pain produces competence if we're willing to learn from it, or it produces more pain if we numb and anesthetize it. So you can incompetently respond to pain and you can competently respond to pain. We're doing a lot of anesthetizing because we're very psychologically illiterate. We're not dealing with a lot of these things head on as a cultural conversation. But we're still doing better than we were before. There was a time when going to AA was a sign of shame. Now going to AA is a sign of strength and vulnerability, right? That's progress. AA has always worked better than nothing. And so acknowledging that rather than shaming it is more intelligent. So So we've got two step forwards of competence. Now, at some point in the competence continuum, the pain goes away. The shame goes away. The punishment goes away. And the traumatic abuse goes away, because that's not what competent people do. And at that point, we can enter the empathic regions of the brain with a great feeling of wonder, beauty, truth. At that point, we can enter the transcendent regions of the brain with a sense of unconditional acceptance and belonging to all things. We are all descendants of the Big Bang. We're all part of an interconnected ecology. We can start remembering the many, many ways we are interconnected. We don't have to fear nature as we did in the 1,000 years ago, for fearing the wild. We don't have to fear the dragon inside as we map out the regions of the psyche. And that is a time of grace. That is a time of love. And the question is how to move ourselves towards that step by step without collapsing into the overwhelming powerlessness that we feel when we really want that and it doesn't work out, right? Because that's when we go back to certainty. It never works out. It never works out. It's never going to work for me, ever. No point. That's when it's so painful, the uncertainty and the failure, right? When we can tolerate and say, yeah, 70% of the time it's not going to work out for me. But it's working 30% of the time, and if I keep working in another 10 years, maybe we'll get that up to 50% working. Where 50% of the relational endeavors I attempt create sustainable love and belonging rather than blame, shame, and re-traumatization. That's not bad for a generation. 30% to 50% success, that's huge. You just, if the cult would accelerate at that pace, so many of these things would be truly healed in the next 50 years or so. Thank you.